We would ask that everybody stay muted. We're going to start out with some introductory comments, and then we'll move into questions. If you are logging in over the computer, we would ask you to type your questions into the chat rather than asking them. We're going to have a lot of people on this call, and it'll be difficult if everybody's talking at once. So it'll be easier for us if the people who are online can type their questions in. So on the call today, we have Kyle Blaze. Kyle is our head judge advisor for the state of Illinois. Myself, Bob Hubberts, I am the tournament director for the Einstein and Hopper tournaments. Dee Karabowitz, who is our Illinois head referee, and Sarah Lubick, who is our Illinois First Lego League program director. So I'm going to start out with a couple of comments, and then Kyle's going to share a couple of comments on judging, and Dee will talk about some of our issues with the table and with the referee. So first of all, we have posted some maps with pit assignments onto the First Illinois Robotics website, www.firstillinoisrobotics.org. And if you go to the FLL section of the championship tournament, there's a number of schedules that are posted there. Two of them are maps of the pits in J and H that show where team tables are. Bob? When you arrive at the tournament on a Saturday or Sunday, your team can go directly to your pit table. We just ask that the coach come by sometime before their first judged event to Bob? The lobby in Building J to
muted.
The lobby in Building J to pick up the teams. Just check in, let us know you're there, and pick up the card that has your name on it that you bring to the tables. For the day to run smoothly, it's very important that everybody's on time.
Unmuted.
Every team has 8 scheduled activities for the day. We really can't wait for teams who are late for activities. So if you're late for your judging, you'll have less time in your judging session. And when we're ready to run the robot runs, we can't wait for teams who are late arriving because it'll throw off the whole day and all the other appointments that you have. So we just ask that you're very careful about being on time for all your activities. Practice tables. We will provide all the models that are dual locked to the table, but any pieces that are not dual locked to the table, you need to bring them with you when you go to the practice tables. So bring your set from your own fields, and we will provide all the items that are dual locked and the table fields itself. Couple of things that we ask teams: if teams are interested in singing the national anthem, they can send in a offer to do that. We have some good interest already in that. We're going to end up drawing names probably out of a hat. But if your team is interested, please then send in your interest by this Sunday, January 13th, and send it to the email address. It's shown on the bottom. It's FLL-volunteer@firstillinoisrobotics.org, and that's also in the coach email package that went out a week or two ago. So if you're interested in the national anthem, send to that email address. Also, we do something called the Magic Moments, which is a chance for teams to have one of their representatives get up and give a very brief, like 25, 30 words, what was a magical moment for our team. If your team is interested in possibly having somebody participate in that, send the 25 or 30 words along with a team picture and send it to the same email address. And if you could get that to us by January 13th as well. The third thing we do during the day, both days of the tournament, we have scores showing on the big screen. We also have other information, but one of the things we like to do is show pictures of some of the teams. So if you would like to participate and have your team picture showing up throughout the day on the big screen with the scores, etc., you can send that as well, and again, do it by Sunday. And you can our AV guy's email address is in the package. You can also just send it to the FLL volunteer email address, and we'll get them all to them. So we have posted all the schedules, and you can, again, they're on the website under the championship tournament. And there's a judge schedule, there is a table schedule, there is a combined schedule that has judging and tables, and the alliance round is also a separate schedule. Sarah sent out links yesterday to food order forms. We have a First Tech Challenge team running the concessions on Saturday, and we have a team that has both First Tech Challenge and First Robotics that's running the concessions on Sunday. They have links to see their menus, and they also have links to pre-order sandwiches and pizzas, and you can go on online and place those orders. One last thing from me before I turn it over to Kyle. We are desperately in need of a couple of photographers. We had photographers for the 2 days, and because of work conflicts coming up at the last minute, we lost both our photographers. We really want to take team pictures. So if anybody is aware of a parent or a coach or mentor who can help, either just for the afternoon, early afternoon on either day or the whole day, please have them contact us at the FLL volunteer email address. We're still looking for photographers. So with that, I will turn it over to Kyle Blaze, and Kyle's going to talk a little bit about some of the issues with judging. Kyle?
Hi there, everybody. Bob, could you pull up that floor plan of building F for me? Okay, so on the map here, it's sideways, but we get a floor plan of building F. Now, building F is where all the judging rooms are. And so the first thing I want to say is that if you look at your schedules, teams have usually about 20 or 30 minutes at least between each judging session. Now, we've found in past years that the hallway where all the judging rooms are can get very loud if all the teams stand out there. So when it gets loud, the judges can't hear the teams. We don't want that. The judges don't want that. I don't think you want that. So we're asking that teams wait in the hallway. And if you look on this map here, it's where it says to building G, that way. We have the one quarter that's fully in building F, and then you have the other hallway that leads to building G, the other buildings. If you wait until that, we're asking teams to wait in that hallway until 5 minutes before the judging time. The hallways are very short. It does not take very long to walk down a couple of rooms to the way. But when you have a multitude of teams waiting right outside each room for their judging session, all those quiet voices become very loud. And again, judges can't then hear what's going on and what teams are saying in the judging room. So that is what we're asking teams. We will, if we have enough volunteers, have people posted down there to remind people not to wait in those hallways. But that means even if you are down in that hallway and you have a judging session and you come out of one, please go down to the other hallway and wait until if you're not going back to the pit, go wait in that other hallway until just a few minutes before your next judging session. That will make it so much better for all the teams that are in the judging rooms. Okay, so that's the one thing I want to ask as a favor to all the teams. Now, I just want to do a quick overview of how judging is going to work, because people always want to ask, and especially because we have some new things going on this year. So as a reminder, it's in the documents, there will be no core values judging, no core values teamwork challenge this year. There will be a core values poster requirement. So teams need to have a core values poster at the tournament. When they go into judging, they'll have time to go in. There'll be a table in the room. They can put the poster on the table if they want. Then judges will give them 2 minutes to talk about their poster. The 2 minutes is not a plethora of time. It's just enough time for the feedback we've had in past is that some teams feel like with the question and answer period, they don't get to talk about some of the things they want to talk about because they never get asked the right question. This is a way for teams to have at least a couple of minutes where they get to steer the conversation, say whatever they want. So we're hoping that this will be beneficial for those teams that have had a hard time emphasizing the things that they feel they want to emphasize. In robot design, the new thing this year is there will be no game table in the judging rooms. Your teams will not be running missions for the judges in the robot design judging room. They will come in, they will have 4 minutes from when they enter the room to talk about and make a presentation about their robot, meaning how they've built their robot, how they decided on missions, how they programmed the robot, what their strategy was, all of the process of making and doing the robot to do the game missions. Now, there will not be any callbacks in robot design. Instead, the robot design judges will be out in the competition area later in the day. So they will still have an opportunity to watch matches. So if they feel it's important to see a robot running, they will have the opportunity to do that. But during the judging time, again, it's about the robot design process. And this is a trend that's happening throughout FIRST. For project We always go back and forth on how the timer starts. We're following the first policy, which is the timer starts for the project presentation once the first person sets foot in the room. So that is when the 5-minute presentation timer should start for teams for the project presentation. And project will be the only area that has callbacks this year. Okay, the one other thing for that I want to talk about is the concept of kids do the work. I want to remind you, this starts, okay, it's February, and you're going to unload cards. And if teams are like any teams I've had when I've coached, most of them won't be dressed properly. So help bring the stuff inside, get it into the pit area. But once you get to your team's pit, it is the kids' day. That means touching the robot, touching the computer, anything for project, that is their responsibility. Let them shine, let them do the work. We get reports of every time a coach is walking carrying all the project stuff, every time a coach is walking down the hallway carrying the robot to judging, that all gets filtered in by a volunteer or somebody else, and it gets sent to me and the other judges. And then we have to follow up on it. It's not really what we want to spend our day doing. And we don't want to have to penalize your team for doing it. But anytime coaches are doing the work for kids, that gets relayed to the judges, and it will affect their core value scores. And if it happens enough, or if it is serious enough, it will potentially disqualify that team from being able to win any awards. We do not want that to happen. So remember, once you get inside, from when you get in the morning until when you're leaving to pack up your car, it is the kids' day to shine, and it is the kids' day to do the work. You guys are there to celebrate the fact that you've guided them. So if that's hard for you as a coach to do, or if you find you have some parents that have a hard time doing that, just remember, just go get a drink, not an alcoholic one, but some other kind of drink, and relax and sit back and just let the kids shine and have a good time, and take it from there. And that's just what I remind you, because that is something we take very seriously. And that's all I have. It's on to D.
Okay, so Bob, if you could pull up my slides. Awesome. So what I'm going to talk about is the things that we always have problems with, or the things that were very prevalent that we had issues with at qualifiers. So the first thing, I hope everyone knows, robots have to be less than 12 inches tall on a launch or a relaunch. So, you know, before the 3, 2, 1 Lego, they have to be less than 12 inches tall. If the robot comes back to base, or the kids retrieve the robot and intend to relaunch it at some point, it has to be less than 12 inches tall. One thing I want to make sure all your students are aware of, so please pass this on, is that they can't be holding or handling anything on the field when they go to launch their robot. So what this means is that they can't be holding down jigs, they can't be holding up arms, they can't be holding a mission model waiting to preload it after they launch the robot somehow. Okay, next slide. Bob, can you go to the next slide? Hey, Bob, can you go to the next slide? Okay, interruptions. So this one we all know, if your team gets an interruption penalty, it's because they've interacted with the robot in some way. They need to bring it back to base, and they will get a touch penalty. And then if we go to the next slide, I'll explain why this is important. So,
Sorry, D, it's not moving fast here, sorry.
Okay, no worries, I'll just keep talking. So what I wanted to be clear on is, while teams can interrupt a robot at any point and bring it back to base, a team cannot strategically interrupt their robot in such a way that the interruption is their main method of scoring the points. So the couple of justifications behind this is that missions are opportunities for robots to earn points. Robots are defined completely on in the rules as to what they are and what equipment is. And so external sensors are defined by R04, and that doesn't include human eyes. So then if we go on to the next slide, there are two actual...
We had one clarification question that just came in. You mentioned that team members cannot hold anything when robot is launched, like a jig or attachment.
So what I mean by that is the active technicians at the table, so the two kids who are actively running the robot at the table, cannot be interacting with the field, with anything on the field besides going to launch the robot. So if kid A is going to hit the go button and launch the robot off to go do a mission, then kid B can't be holding the jig in place while the robot is using that to align itself to be launched. I hope that's clear. So the reason for the strategic interruption things that I just talked about was there are two cases that we've been noticing both in our state and across kind of everywhere, like they've come up in the head ref forums. There's two scenarios where strategic interruptions can be done to earn you points and it's not your robot doing them. So one of the scenarios is the team's robot is driving to the observatory. The team carefully watches the robot as it pushes the pointer and picks it up as soon as the pointer is in orange. There's no way for the referees to know that the robot is stopping at that point. So that's not allowed because your robot is not completing the mission solely by its allowable equipment. The same goes for food production. So if a team has programmed the robot to very slowly push in food production until it gets to green and the kids grab it right as it hits green, the robot can be continuing to move. So it could keep going, and the only reason it doesn't is because the team has interrupted that. So in that case as well, they've used their eyes as an external sensor, so that's not allowed.
Okay, there are a couple people that are typing some clarifying questions. Why don't we'll let Dee finish her presentation,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back to the clarifying questions and hit those first, okay?
Yes. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is the end of the match. So this folds into the next point, which is about satellites. So teams are allowed to stop a program at the end of the match. There was a lot of confusion at qualifiers. Teams thought that they were going to get touch penalties or interruption penalties by stopping the robot. They won't. It's actually defined at the bottom of R14, which is you can shut off a program or you can stop the robot and leave it in place without a penalty. So it's without a penalty, but that doesn't mean that things don't continue to happen to those objects. So for example, if a team's last mission is delivering satellites and the team is very carefully, again, watching how the robot is moving across the satellite orbits and stops the robots, right, passes the satellite orbits, per R14, they're not going to get a touch penalty or an interruption penalty, sorry, because they're allowed to stop it after the end of the match, but they still incur that whatever's happening to the transported objects. So the objects will return to base in the case of the satellites if the team started with them in base. Okay, so then if a robot is clearly stopped running, for example, when it's delivering satellites, the team can still stop the program from running, but because the intended mission is done, they're allowed to leave the items as is. So let's talk about end of the match really quick. And I know we covered this in the coach's letter. When at the end of the match, and Bob, you can move on to the next slide, teams should leave the robot in place, and teams cannot interact with the table while two team members are scoring with the referee. So that one's really specific, and the referee may not be paying attention to the rest of the table, so the kids should be policing themselves and making sure that they're not interfering with the table in any way while things are being scored. Okay, so then if we move on to the field setup slides. Oh no, it's okay. So just so everyone is aware, the east and west sides of the mat will be taped down per the field setup guide. So the tape will extend only over the mat's black border, and it will only stick to the hollow core door, that horizontal surface, so it won't run up the wall. But this is in large part because we expect teams to be doing solar panel for the opponent. And we want to, well, we saw a lot of field damage happening at qualifiers because the mats weren't taped. It is optional, so we are doing this at the state tournament. So I recommend that you guys, put down some tape on your field and practice a little bit and see if it makes a difference. It shouldn't make a difference unless you're doing the opponent's solar panel. The last thing I definitively want to talk about is the mat setup. So this wonderful picture in the field setup guide, the mat should be flush up against the south wall, and it should have an equal distance from the west wall to the mat as the east wall to the mat. So how I say it is the mat is flush against the south wall and centered east to west. So the mat does not get squared up into the southwest corner of the field. This is by far always our biggest thing at state. So just make sure that, you know, the kids are aware and that the kids are practicing with the mat set up properly. So there should be a gap between the west wall and the edge of the mat. Okay, so that's it for my slide. So let's look at some of those questions.
So Dee, I don't know if you can see them or not. The first one is, they can prepare for, this is a question, they can prepare for the next attachment. In other words, holding other attachments at the
Correct.
start of the match.
So any technician, not just active technicians, can prepare for the next attachment. It's just while you're launching, you can't be interacting with the items on the field. So you can be interacting them with in the side table, or you could be interacting with them above the field, just not physically on the field. So really, this really means if kid A is launching the robot, kid B cannot be holding the jig that the robot will launch from. That's really where this comes into play.
So Dee, the next question, for the 12 inches, is it measured from the mat up or from where the attachment is attached to the motor?
So it is always measured from the mat up. So anything attached to your robot or used as equipment must be less than or equal to 12 inches tall. And that is measured from the mat. So imagine that there's a, you know, quarter of a 12-inch tall cylinder sitting over base, and the robot must completely fit into that when it is launching. So that means your jig can't extend over 12 inches tall. Your jig can't extend over the south or the west wall, or it can't extend outside of base.
So the next question, and we have another referee questions in a second. Is the schedule for the practice round matches available? If so, where? There is it's on the judging schedule. We show the time that you're in each of the 3 judging rooms, and then we also show the time that your team is scheduled for the practice tables, for the practice match. The practice round, you will be on the same table for the practice round that you'll be on for your first official match. The referees will be there scoring it just as you are. We're going to use it for the referees to go through, you know, matches themselves as a practice round for them as well as for all of you. So yes, it is published. It's out on the website under the championship page on the First Illinois Robotics webpage. It's along with the judging schedule.
Can you pull that up, Bob? I think it would be helpful if people.
I can't, Sarah. I won't be able to get to it on my computer without a lot of different maneuvering here. So it's not readily available right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to mention from the referee standpoint for practice rounds, make sure that that your team brings everything with them that they intend to run. Because what we really want to do is we want to catch any problems in advance of our competition rounds in the afternoon. So if they have questions, or if they're like, we're not 100% sure, can you take a look at this? That is the time that we want to do that. We want your kids to have the best day possible. And the practice rounds is one of the ways we really saw that could make it better. One thing I do want to bring up that Kyle mentioned, is Kyle mentions many things. Okay, so I know Kyle talked about overcoaching. Please be aware that also really happens at the table and we can all hear. So kids, the team members should be directing their own team members. The coaches should not be directing team members to move the robot an inch to the left or choose the red attachment or pick up the robot, things like that. That is the responsibility of the team members to give those directions to the students.
So Dee, the next question, is there a limit to how many kids can switch in and out during the competition round?
No, there is not a limit, and the same kids can switch out and switch back in later. It really doesn't matter to us. The critical item is that only 2 kids are allowed at the table at a time. So that trade-off of child has to happen not at the field. So it's just take a step back, next kid steps in, things like that.
Okay, and Sarah, I was able to go quickly pull up the judge match. It was a good suggestion. I was just worried about going into all the clutter of my computer, but I got it pretty quick. So this is there's 2 pages, and it shows for each team. It shows what pit they're in, and then it shows the core value time and the room they're in for core values and for project and robot design. And on the far right is your practice table time and what table you're on. Another question that we had, will the slides that we showed be available after the call? Yes, we will get them posted to the championship webpage We'll take care of getting that out there by tomorrow. So we'll put these slides out there. Another question, if one team member isn't involved with robot runs, must they stand outside of robot run tables? Dee, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, so we simply don't have enough space for everyone to stand in there. So if one team member's not involved, they should be standing outside the curtain. If only 2 members are running, only they should be inside of the curtain. We know that does make it a little awkward if there's just one kid left outside the curtain, but I think once you guys see the space and understand like the hecticness of it, there's really not enough space for like a safe flow of people through there, especially when we have to get myself or Jim Herbs to a table to watch something or look at something.
Okay, Dee, the next question. Can only one kid run the robot if you say that kid B cannot handle anything that kid A uses to launch the mission? I think you got to clarify again the rule.
So if a kid is going to launch the robot, another kid can't be touching the robot. Does that make sense?
But that doesn't mean they can't be holding the attachment for the next mission, right?
They can be holding things for the next mission, but they can't be physically touching anything that the robot is using to launch.
Hi, this is Shivangi. That was my question. So what I'm trying to understand is, so the kid who is not hitting the run button, they cannot hold the jig for the same mission either? They can hold the next mission, but not for the same mission?
Not for the same mission.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
D, next one. Is there a size limit to container used to hold attachments for the robots?
So there's not a size limit used to hold your attachments. There's a size limit on the cart or container you may bring to the field area. That is defined in our coach email. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I believe it is, a kind of standard sized wheeling cart, but not absurdly huge.
So Sarah pointed out that the location, the web location of the state championship information is at our www.firstillinoisrobotics.org/state-championship-tournaments. So if you want to try and type that in, and Sarah, maybe we should send that out in a note to coaches tomorrow if they don't have that already. So another question, do you consider best of 4 scores, same as qualifiers? Yes, for the robot, it's the best of the 4 scores. Kyle, for robot design, do we bring all our attachments and robot to show, even though we are not demonstrating on a table? Kyle, are you, Kyle? So when we can get Kyle's microphone back on, we'll come back to that question. Another question, do you have more practice tables other than the main dry run for the morning? Yes, we have 8 practice tables that will run all day long. We do have a 5-minute time limit where teams need to relinquish to the next team that's there after 5 minutes, but we'll have 8 practice tables, 4 in the building H pits and 4 in the building J pits.
Hey, Bob, I'm here.
Okay, the question was, should they, do they bring, for robot design, do we bring all our attachments and robot to show, even though we're not demonstrating on a table?
Yes, you should bring everything for your robot that you need to be able to explain how it works. I mean, they will still be able to show the robot. They can still put attachments on and off to show how that they are handled, stuff like that. Whatever and what format the team uses to explain all this information is up to the team. But yes, I would definitely recommend that any components that they have, any attachments, accessories, jigs, bring those so you can show them to the judges.
Okay. So I had a question, is it too late to sign up for the Alliance round? If there's somebody we will try and get everybody slotted in. If your team did not sign up, send a note to either Sarah Lubick or send it to the FLL volunteer email address, and we'll do our best to try and rejigger the Alliance schedule. There is some room for us to add more teams because there are some teams that opted out. So go ahead and send that to us and we'll do our best. So Sarah, did you want to comment on the side table note that you sent here?
I just wanted to make sure that people know where to find that. And then I put this is from the website, the First Illinois Robotics.org website, directly quoted there. So this is the size limitation that the teams will be limited to. So you can't bring anything larger than this to the tournament table. Dee could probably add to that better than I can. So,
I mean, you did great, Sarah. So we'll have TV trays at every table. So don't worry about bringing a side table if you don't need to bring one. Some teams elect to bring in kind of like a side table with compartments almost. So they've designed something that goes on top of a standard table or whatnot to, line up all their attachments or things. Or they bring in a cart where they can just wheel things in. It is not necessary. It is just if your team chooses to do it. So if you guys do, it's smaller than 18 by 36 and less than 36 inches tall.
So the next question was, will there be a volunteer overseeing the practice tables, or are teams just asked to demonstrate gracious professionalism and stick to the 5 minutes? Well, we do want teams to demonstrate gracious professionalism and make sure that they're behaving appropriately at the tables. But we will have volunteers at the tables. There's 8 tables. There will be 4 volunteers, and each volunteer will be helping to coordinate 2 practice tables. And they will have a list for those 2 tables. And you can put your name on the list, and we do it in rank order. Whoever's there first goes on the list. You can only have your name on the list once. If you're, we don't want people putting their name on 6 times. So once you get off the table, you can put your name back on the list. But we will have a volunteer. We'll have 4 volunteers, 1 for each of the 2 practice tables, helping, and they'll have stopwatches. And at 5 minutes, they will ask you to leave the table and go to the next team. So we don't have any more typed questions. So now we have a lot of people on the phone, and I just unmuted the lines. If people aren't going to be speaking, if they could remute themselves. But do people on the phone have any questions for us?
Please stay here because
Any questions on the phone?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The first one is in regards to the pit tables for the teams. I noticed that there's 4 rectangular tables put together. So would a team be able to put up a backdrop of any sort, or would that be too much of a hindrance because the 4 tables come together in the corners?
I guess if the backdrop is not encroaching on the other 3 tables, you can put the backdrop up, but we want to make sure everybody has their full space. What kind of a backdrop is it?
Well, it's framed off, made out of PVC pipes, and then a curtain kind of hangs off the top rod.
I think that as long as you're not disrupting the other 3 tables, you can do it.
Okay. Because it would, I didn't want the team that was across from our team to feel like, okay, we just put like a curtain up between the 2 or anything like that.
I think I would say from a gracious professionalism standpoint, I would talk to the other teams, and if they really have a problem with it, I would handle it that way, and then
okay.
And if everybody's fine, go put it up. As long as you're not blocking an aisle or blocking the other tables.
Okay. And then I had 2 questions regarding project callbacks. The first one was, or is, if you do get called back on your project, are you going through the presentation of the project as you did in the morning with a 5-minute limitation and a Q&A after that?
Yes, exactly the same.
Okay.
The only difference when you have 4 callbacks, the one difference I will note is that in the initial morning judging, coaches, family members are allowed in. For callbacks, it is only the team.
Right, and that's clarified in the packet. What about as far as the judges that are in the callback room? Are they going to be a mix of new judges? Could it be one of the judges that were in the room in the morning with that team, or is it going to be a different set?
It will be one of the same judges from the morning, and then there will be some new judges who did not see them in the morning.
Okay, perfect. All right.
So we had a typed question here. How does the alliance round actually work? And the way it works is that the two teams that are part of an alliance, they discuss a strategy, and then each team takes turns running their robot. So Team A runs the robot and does as many missions as they can, and then Team B's robot needs to be used, and they need to run a mission, and then when that robot run is done, goes back to Team A. And if you have programs that do multiple missions, that's fine, but in terms of launching the robot, each launch needs to be alternated between the two teams. Other questions?
Just want to reiterate for you, Bob, for everyone, Bob, that the alliance round is for entertainment purposes only. So there's no consequence for participation and how the teams perform. It's for fun.
Wasn't the alliance runs, is that optional, or is that something that every team is scheduled to do? Because I thought I saw a schedule that had every team matched up with someone else.
It is optional, and of the 96 teams that are coming this weekend, 93 of them responded whether they wanted to be in the alliance or not. I had a couple people who didn't respond. So in general, the list is everybody who said, yes, I want to be in the alliance when they registered for the tournament. It's not everybody. There are 8 or 10 from each day that elected not to participate. So Kyle, we have a written question for project. Do we need to wait everyone get inside the room, including parents, before starting?
That is up to how the team wants to do it. The timer starts once the first person steps into the room. So it depends on the length of their project and how they have decided to organize that as to how they're going to handle that. But they just need to know that once the first person enters the room, the 5 minutes for setup and doing the presentation starts. Correct. So obviously the team should enter before parents or coaches. Once the first person from the team enters the room, the judges are instructed to start the 5-minute timer.
Other questions?
I have a question for Sarah, and I know it's kind of hitting the same question over and over, but I just wanted to clarify the whole starting the robot from the base. If the jig or attachment that you have on the robot has to be freestanding on its own, and the only thing that the technician can do is just press the start button. They cannot be having any connection or contact with the jig.
Correct. Start button or trigger via a sensor or something like that.
Okay, perfect.
Other questions? D, there's a question on written question. Can the robot, along with the attachments, be taller than 12 inches?
Not when you launch. After the team has launched the robot, it can extend above 12 inches tall.
Okay. Other questions?
So someone just actually sent me a thing asking about filming in the judging rooms. Just to be clear, you are allowed to film anything you want in any of the judging rooms. You will not be able to have a good view, though, because the coaches and family members will be behind the team. You are not allowed to walk in front of the team to where the judges are in order to film. So if you want to film, that's great, but you'll be filming the back of your team.
And just as an editorial comment, filming is for entertaining. We don't do instant replays, and Dee won't watch a videotape of your robot run.
That's true. I won't.
Other questions?
Hello. Will the teams have access to the project presentation room before the presentation starts, just so they can get an understanding of the layout of the classroom, so they'll know how to set things up when they walk in the room, so they don't waste time?
Unfortunately, no, because the it's going nonstop pretty much. So, before your team will be in there, there will be another team, and the 5 minutes in between will be when the judges are scoring the teams. So these are fairly standard classrooms. They're not that big. It shouldn't be super complicated. They should be able to figure out pretty darn fast where they're going and what they're doing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking maybe around 7:15 when we walk in the building, can we go in and scout out the classrooms before anyone starts the project?
Yeah, if you were, so judges will be getting down to the judging rooms around probably between 7:45 and 8. If you were to go down there before that time, then they would be empty and you would probably be able to look in them.
And generally what we do is set up a desk for the judges and an open space in front of them for the kids. It's generally an open space and a desk. But as Kyle said, you're welcome if you get there early to go look. There's another question, Kyle. I don't know if you can see it. How long can the robot design presentation and core values presentation be?
So the robot design presentation is 4 minutes. Again, that's 4 minutes from when the team enters the room. The core values presentation is only 2 minutes. So especially being only 2 minutes, the judges are instructed to let the teams in the room. And especially because in core values, we know so many of the teams like to come in and say hi. I do want to remind you that we are discouraging teams from shaking hands because it is cold and flu season. So, if they want to come in and introduce themselves, say their name real quickly, that's fine. We do want them to be fairly fast. We discourage them from going and shaking all the judges' hands just so too many germs don't get spread. And then the judges will basically instruct them that they have 2 minutes to share information from their poster.
Steve, there is a question about, is there a limitation on attachment size?
No, it must fit in base.
Any other questions on the phone or online?
I have a question. I'm not clear about the kid B cannot handle anything that kid A used to launch the mission. Do you mean for example, there's a attachment we'll put on the robot, so both kids it's not allowed two kids put attachment on robot, or just just one kid can put attachment on the robot, or what?
No, so two kids can work on the robot at the same time. The problem comes in when when the robot needs to be launched, which is when the kids initiate it to leave base and complete a task. Team members, so the kids running at the table, the two active technicians, cannot be interacting with anything else on the field at the same time. So,
okay, got it.
Kid A can be putting on the attachment while Kid B is putting on a second attachment, and Kid A can be setting up the jig, and all that can be happening at the same time. But when they go to run the mission, the other technician can't be holding the jig in place, or they can't be holding up an arm until the robot's program locks the motor, things like that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So just to clarify again, before launching, both of them can work on the attachments and all that, right? It's just when you hit the run button.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
There's a question. Core values judging starts from the person entering.
So again, core values, since it's only 2 minutes to present the poster, that is different than robot designer project. The robot designer project start from when the team enters the room. Core values, we will let the team come into the room, say hi to the judges if they want to, and then the judges will tell them when their 2 minutes starts.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, it sounds like we've gotten to the end of questions here. We're really looking forward to a great couple of tournaments, and really wish all of you luck, and hope your teams have a great deal of fun. Kyle or Sarah or Dee, any last words before we drop off?
looking forward to seeing all the teams. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope they have fun. Please send us feedback after the tournament and let us know what you thought.
Be sure to get your lunch orders in. It might be something you're not exactly particularly thinking about right now, but trust me, on the day of the tournament, everyone's going to be thinking about it. So just get that in, get that done, so you don't have to worry about it later. And also be sure to come visit the registration. We're going to be selling t-shirts and for the first time ever, custom minifigures. So please come by and check that out. We look forward to seeing everybody. It's going to be a wonderful weekend. So everyone stay healthy until then.
Very good. Thank you. And with that, we'll bring the call to a close. Take care, everybody. See you in a week.